I've got a fair number of slides here to go through, as you can see from the handout, so bear with me. And it's a little bit dry. I'll try to pepper it up with some jokes every once in a while, but let's bear with me. So first of all, a little preamble about what this, about you as parents, you as students, coming to expect from this year. So some of what I talk about tonight you will know. Some of it's common sense. Some of it hopefully is new. But at the very least, you're going to find out what my process is, what our process is in dealing with students as they're coming through high school, especially in grade 12. So the number one word for students in grade 12, I think, to describe their state of mind and emotional condition in grade 12 is it's overwhelming. Students coming in, what do you feel like doing next year? Range from I don't know to I've got all sorts of ideas, but there's just too many schools, too many things to consider. It's just overwhelming. So it's part of our job is to help them kind of go through that process and kind of logically kind of set up a plan. There's so many paths to choose from, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. When we think about it, this is a grade 12 student's first significant choice in their life. For the last 12 years, they've been going to the next grade. It's all been set in stone for them. It's all just right there. This is the first time that they're going on to something new, and they're the ones having to make the decision on it. So, yeah, overwhelming. Super anxious in general about making the wrong choice. There's so many choices to make. There's so many opportunities out there. And what if I choose the wrong one? My life will be ruined. Okay. Some students want to wait until they know for sure. And it comes, the clouds open up, the rainbow comes, and it says, you shall be a this for the rest of your life. We know that doesn't happen. However, we know that you can only forecast so much. So in grades 10, 11, we do career assessments with them. We talk with them. Teachers talk to them. The admin talks to them. Parents talk to them. Uncle Joe talks to them. Aunt Lido talks to them. Everybody talks to these kids and they kind of get ideas about things. But at some point, they've got to engage and take a chance. There's that big decision. Okay. And the things that we try to kind of reassure students with is that you can recover from everything, okay, or practically anything. Yeah, there's no bad choices to be made at this point in terms of schooling and all that kind of stuff. Everything will work out. You might have to adjust. You probably will have to adjust as you go along, but it will work out. Any education that a student receives, it's never wasted, even if it's in something else altogether. That will help for some of their future choices and gives them a larger worldview. And taking that step into post-secondary, engaging is really important because that'll set in process a number of other steps that wouldn't be foreseen way back here in grade 12. So it's important to just get involved, take your best guess, get all the information you can, and go for it. We do this wide-ranging career assessment stuff in grade 10, continue in grade 11, but in grade 12, it's time to get strategic and practical. What are you going to apply to? How are you going to make that happen? What kind of program are you interested in? What kind of courses do you have? You're going to be able to get the marks to get into that competitive program. What's the timing for all that? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And ultimately, we want students to have a soft landing in post-secondary. They've built up a lot of confidence at Calgary Academy, feel good about themselves as learners. We want that to continue as much as possible. And we're always welcome back to talk to whoever is doing this career counseling, probably Ms. Hallwell next year. Always welcome back to continue the conversation because it's a long process. We recognize that it doesn't just end at grade 12. Okay, that's the preamble. So let's get on with the show. So here's the kind of overview of the career development process. So in grade 10, we give them assessments through my blueprint, personality inventories, career inventories. Initiate the meetings with them, start with a career planner. Grade 11, we will meet with them again and have some guest speakers that they're welcome to see or listen to. They go through career and life management. One of the modules of that is career development. And then grade 12, again, we're going to start getting strategic about things. So it's deliberately a 3-year program that your students have been involved in, that your sons and daughters have been involved in. And there is kind of an idea behind that, in the sense that we want to engage them in post-secondary thinking, and then leave them alone for a while. Then engage them again, let it digest, let them come back to us. We schedule to see every student at least once a year for a thorough meeting, but they can come visit us anytime they want, as many times as they want. And moms and dads too. Okay, this is the online career tool that we use for the students. It's actually very sophisticated. There's all sorts of career inventories on there. Keeps track of it. There's resume builders, all sorts of handy fun things. And there's a great exploration, post-secondary school exploration career site. So if you haven't looked at it with your son or daughter, get them to log in at some point and go wander through it. I use it routinely when I'm talking to kids and see what my blueprint has to say about that program, where some schools are, and then we'll use that as a launching point to look at the websites in more detail. University websites, if you've been at them, are all amazingly confusing and complicated and weird, and none of them are the same. And I remember talking to a bunch of counselors or representatives from universities, says, why can't you guys just make your university websites all the same? Right? They just laughed at me. Of course not. We're better than these other guys. So what this does with the career things, with the post-secondaries, is it gives a little summary in their own format, which makes it very user-friendly. And then you can launch off into that website. I spend a lot of my time when I'm working with the grade 12 students, looking at those websites, confirming that the courses that they, you know, the prerequisites are there, that they've got them and the marks and all that kind of stuff. And it takes us a while to wade through them. So this whole year, we broke it down into several chunks. First of all, we're at the choosing stage here, September, October, November. There's a number of components to this part of the situation. Okay, so there's a number of things, number of factors to consider, and these are the things that I will mention, and Jessie, when she's talking to the students, will mention to the students at some point in the conversation. These conversations do tend to be pretty long, okay? Like typically a whole period at least, or extending into more than one period. So some of the things to consider, right? The student is like going away to university, for example. Do they feel this is a challenge and they're kind of ready for it? Or is it going to be a setback for them? Are they not ready for it? Would going away to a faraway university be a little bit too much for them to handle at this point? Should they wait a little bit before they do this? So, you know, when I'm talking to them, I try to assess this. I'm talking to parents, you know, like, yeah, they're ready, or maybe we'll just stay, you know, in town for a while and then we'll head out. Okay, again, we want them to have that soft landing. Whether students should continue on with their education, grade 12, go on to university or college, or whether they should take a break, a hiatus. And I mean, there's points to be made for both. Sometimes they're a little bit burnt out with high school and they need a break. They need a chance to work in the real world, get a job, show up on time all the time, get in trouble with the boss for not doing this or that, you know, have some real life experiences, and then go back and tackle post-secondary. For some, taking that break isn't good. It turns into a longer break, okay? So maybe you should have gone to school right away while you've still got some momentum. So that's something we try to kind of suss out as well. Career maturity. What kind of decisions are they making about their choices? Are they in line I mean, somewhat realistic with what they want and what they want to do, okay? That's something else we kind of try to get a handle on. Motivation to succeed. Are they, this is sometimes where that break comes in. If they're leaving grade 12, they aren't, they just barely made it through, they're going to be hard. It's going to be hard for them to get motivated for that next step. Clarity of goals. I mean, some students come in and they know exactly what they want, and I just need to kind of get out of the way for them. And some students have no idea at all. We try to just build up from scratch what kinds of things that they might be interested in. Typically, I feel anyway, that when the students leave, they got a clearer idea of where they want to go than when they came in, okay? And we want to kind of avoid default jobs if they do go and work right after high school. We don't want them to get stuck in that kind of trap of working in default jobs, entry level labor jobs where they just kind of get stuck, okay? So again, if they're in that kind of position and you can't get them out of there, suggest to them come back and talk to somebody at Calgary Academy, and we'll see if we can't give them a little shove. So there's all sorts of things that come right out of high school, direct entry. So going right into post-secondary, college, university, getting into that program, getting in residence. There are some, when there's that kind of gap year thing, students might decide to travel, right, which is a form of education, we know that. They might choose to volunteer somewhere. They might want to work at, even at the default jobs, working for a while is a good experience for all of us. They might do any combination of these things. For some students, it's upgrading a course or two and working part-time, something like that. So of course, every student is different. We want to try to find the best fit for them. So post-secondary means after high school. So it means all sorts of things. It means university, it means college, it means apprenticeships, any kind of further training. We sure really recommend you got to get something, okay? You've got to have some kind of training for future independence, to be able to make enough money to live on, to feel good about yourself, develop confidence, all those kinds of things. So all the various possibilities there. So a lot of students choose university. We'll spend probably a lot of this presentation talking about university. So we want to, again, different things that we want to consider. Students' independence versus how much support they need. Do they still benefit from family support? From people that they know in the community, from their friends? Would that be a real benefit for them as they move on to post-secondary? Because when we think about it, going on to post-secondary, if you go off out of town, you're not only having to adjust, students not only having to adjust to a new way of learning, a new way of teaching, right? Vastly different from small classrooms in Calgary Academy to that first year classroom at UBC with 300 people or more in it. They've got to learn how to deal with people and make friends and make connections. They've got to learn how to do laundry. They've got to learn how to feed themselves. There's a whole raft of things that all of a sudden they've got to take care of. Some kids can manage it. Most manage it. They figure it out. Some fall apart a little bit and they need more support. Okay. There's kind of a divide between commuter and living in residence, right? There's an advantage to being a commuter. Students living here, going to Mount Royal or going to USC. There's an advantage here. It's a lot cheaper. It's half the cost. And you get all that support still from your family, from your friends. Wander to Calgary Academy every once in a while, high fives. Okay. But there's something missing in that arrangement because you're just going into class and then you're coming home at night. You're not making those middle of the night pizza runs and doing all those silly things that people in university get up to. But which are the things that bond students, right? Those are those friendships that last a lifetime. Those are the best times I ever had in my life was when I went to university away from home. I was independent. I got to make friends and do silly things. So you don't get that as much as a commuter. And then program offerings. Some schools just have a program that a student wants. I want aerospace engineering. Well, you're gonna have to go away for that because we don't have that in town here, okay? Near versus far, well, that's just as it sounds. Local would be in Calgary, but and then provincial, you know, students going to U of L or U of A, so they do get some of that independence, but they come home on a fairly regular basis and connect. That's a nice kind of support system. We had lots of students go to University of Lethbridge, nice small university, very supportive, and they come home every weekend for the first while. That starts to taper off until they hardly come home at all. And then national, right anywhere in the country. We get a fair number of students going to Ontario, big schools in Ontario, and they're not coming home very often, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas, those kinds of things. If you've ever looked at the Maclean's magazine rankings, and we're going to go through that in a little bit here, but basically, I like the way they organize universities in Canada: small, medium, and large, primarily undergraduate, comprehensive, and medical doctorate. What that means is that the small universities like Mount Royal, primarily teaching universities. Their main thing is teaching students. They try to have smaller classes. They encourage professors to develop relationships with students. Come and see me, I'll explain it all to you, don't worry about it, right? Same kind of atmosphere as we have at Calgary Academy. It works for students here. It works for students at post-secondary as well. Comprehensive, a little bit bigger, UVic, SFU, schools like that. So now you got a chance for a larger school population, more activities, more programming, more departments, more variety, more of that bigger university, far away experience. And then the medical doctoral, large universities, UC, U of A, UBC, where they have tons of programs, those specialty programs, but they also have the infrastructure for some of the programs that students want. For example, engineering. Can't get that at Mount Royal. You're going to have to go to USC or someplace else to get that kind of program. So another distinction between these schools tends to be the larger the university, the more research oriented they are. That's how they make their claim to fame. USC, for example, wants to be one of the top 5 research universities in Canada. So they try to attract star professors, pour lots of money into research, all that kind of stuff. And oh yeah, we've got to teach undergrads, right? Whereas the primarily undergraduate, they don't do much research. They still get good teacher, good profs, but they're teachers first. So sometimes what students do, they would go to, depending on program availability, if it has it, go to a primarily undergraduate school first. And then if they have to do any kind of graduate work, they can go to that big university and get that base. So here's 2022 Maclean's large university rankings. So, I take these with a grain of salt. You can get an education anywhere in Canada and it'll be top notch. But if you really would like to, break it down into the different categories that they have and how they rank them, it's available. Same players usually at the top, same players usually in the middle. They all kind of, change places a little bit. Comprehensive, that's the view at the top, Victoria. University of Victoria is probably the most popular university for students going away from Calgary Academy at Calgary. And that's largely because it's the island, right? It's the island lifestyle and no 40 below winters and things like that. And then primarily undergraduate. What is interesting is it's UNBC up there, which is a relatively new small university in Prince George. And it's a great little university. Close. We've had lots of students go to Acadia, Nova Scotia, lots of students going to Lethbridge, lots of students going to SFX. And to all of them, but those are the primary popular ones. And when they go to these small universities, they always come back. It's like, I loved it. It was great. Great experience. So refresher, Canadian university requirements. So Canadian universities are really simple. Foreign universities are much more complicated. Canadian universities are super simple. They usually want 5 courses, some want 6, but basically 5 main courses. It's always 4 core and maybe a wild card. Okay, again, depending on the program. Every program is different, but that's generally what's typical. They always want English, 30-1, gotta have that. Most of them want math, 30-1. Especially for engineering, technical programs, engineering, science. Some of the bigger schools want math 30-1 for commerce, business. Then they'll take sciences, social studies, whatever combination. They'll always pick the combination that fits their formula that works best for the student. So if they get to choose between 2 courses to fit part of their formula, they'll take the one with the highest mark. Okay, they'll always do it for the benefit of the student. And so math 30-2 can be used typically in a smaller school for like psychology, business programs, not science. So science always needs math 30-1. So sometimes phys ed gets to be used as that wildcard course, art 30, drama 30. So those are great average boosters. Okay. Typically, let me talk about this here. No, I'm going to wait. Okay. Exams, recent announcement, are down to 20% from 30, which is great because our students haven't had much practice in writing exams. So they've taken it down from 30 down to 20 for this year. Next year, it'll be 30 again, apparently. So it's an advantage to our students to get some practice in this year, writing those formal exams. It is a horrible kind of process, and every student that comes into my office says, I do great in class and the exams kill me. Yes, that's true. And we're doing our best to help you with that. Here's a whole bunch of strategies, blah, blah, blah. Talk to your subject teacher, get some more strategies. We got to work away at this. We've got to deal with that exam. It's a reality. You know, even if you don't ace it, we don't want it to hinder you too much. Okay. We want you to get the best mark you can get in class. Those are the ones you have more control over. Get all your assignments in. Do the rewrites if you can. Bug your teacher. Get all the help you can get. Okay. Get that 95% in class. And then if you get dropped down a bit for the exam, it's not going to cripple you too much. Marks available February, July for those 2 sittings. So typically, the process is, I'm going to go by the slide here or not, but basically students about now, beginning in October, can start to apply to universities. So I recommend starting October, November, December, getting that first set of applications in before Christmas. Some places will give that conditional offer based on the marks submitted during that application. Each province has its own application system. BC Planner for BC, by Alberta for Alberta, OUAC for Ontario. They've all got their own complicated little system. Typically, you need to enter courses and marks at the time of application. Some schools will look at those, like Mount Royal, and say, yeah, you've got the courses we want, you've got nice marks, you're conditionally accepted. Okay. And then the next time they ask for marks is in July. Grade 12 is all finished and done. All the final marks are in, and they will look at those marks and say, yeah, you're still up there. So you got your final acceptance. Welcome to our school. The larger schools still apply in the fall to start that correspondence, to get the student account set up, to get that communication flow going, all that kind of stuff. But they're going to ask for mid-year marks. They're going to ask for semester 1 final marks. So those 1 or 2 or 3 diploma courses that the student is in, what are those final marks? So those aren't available until February. Exams are in January. It takes a while to mark them. Typically around February 17th, those marks are available. And depending on which school, if it's in Alberta, the post-secondaries will lift that transcript up from Alberta Ed. If it's out of province, the student has to order those transcripts and have them sent to that university through their MyPass account. Every student in grade 12, except 13 of them, have their MyPass account set up. So I will knock off those other students, make sure they all have it. And when I talk to them, I remind them of all this stuff. So those bigger schools get those mid-year transcripts, get those mid-year marks, and then they send out their offer, their conditional offers. They might not go until March or April. And then typically, with all these conditional offers, there is a date to accept that offer with a deposit. Okay. Admission average creep, well, yeah, everything's getting a little bit more competitive, and it's kind of creeps up a little bit every time, right? The average, increase students, all that kind of stuff. Competition for seats, competition for scholarships. Alberta is still at a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of standardized testing. The fact that ours is only 20%, but still, other provinces don't have any standardized testing. It comes up to the high school teacher. I think I'll test them on everything that I taught them. That's it. Okay. Whereas Alberta Ed says, here's the curriculum, and this is where we're going to test them on. I hope you taught them everything there. Okay. So that has an impact on our students getting into post-secondary, also in accessing scholarships. It's all competition for that. However, the bright side of that, the silver lining of that dark cloud, is that universities across Canada value Alberta students, value Calgary students. They want them, okay? Because they know that an 80% in Alberta is a hard 80, whereas 80% in other provinces could be a softer 80, because they keep track of all the kids who come in, the provinces they come from, their success rates, their dropout rates, all that kind of stuff. And somebody's doing a big computer thing and all that. Okay, and they keep track. And for a while there, some universities were giving us a percentage boost, 4% percentage boost, and that changes every year. UBC and Western did for a while. I think it's only Western now. Some universities will accept the school-based mark and not even look at the diploma, right? So those are all things, again, we can look at when I'm talking to each student. But they value our students, okay? So, colleges. So back in the day, colleges were for students in Canada, for students who couldn't get into university. Well, sorry, you gotta go to SAIT, too bad. Would be like hammers, because I'm gonna have an office job because I went to university. Well, it's not that way anymore. SAIT is a fabulous school. I can't encourage enough students to go to SAIT. They have the 2-year diplomas in many programs, but they've also got many 4-year degrees now. And those diplomas, those 2-year diplomas, segue into those degrees seamlessly. Okay. A lot of students seem to like going into business. And I pitch SAIT's business program for a number of reasons. One, you need to have 60% in English 30, grade 12 English, grade 12 math 3-1 or -2. Okay, so it's first come, first served. 2, it's a 2-year diploma. So, some students, 4 years is a long time to grind away at something. And for some students, that's a little bit too long. And if you go in for 3.5 years and you don't finish, you don't get anything. Thanks for all your money, but you're not getting anything. Okay, whereas with the SAIT kind of thing, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this with UBC schools at BC, they do this laddering articulation very well. You've got that 2-year kind of threshold, 2-year window. I can get that diploma and I can walk out and see what the work world has to offer for me. Or I can say, wow, I'm actually a lot better at this stuff than I thought I was. I'm going to complete the degree. There's no penalty. It's 2+2, same amount of time. Okay. The great thing about having those low marks to get in, because it's a diploma program initially, not degree. And to get into the degree, they look at your diploma marks, sorry, they look at your GPA for the first 2 years. They don't look at high school anymore, right? So kids do better at university typically because they're doing stuff that they enjoy doing. So they don't get into these university degree programs with this 2+2. And the benefit is that they've got a escape valve. They can't get that degree, transfer to other universities often. Saint's 2-year diploma, transfers to U of L seamlessly. Okay, often when you start out at one post-secondary and you go to the next post-secondary, that second post-secondary is going to say, I think I've heard of this school. I'll have to take a look at the course and see if they come up to our expectations. And then they'll say, well, you did 2 years there. We'll give you 1 year's worth of credit to our school. Okay, so having that prior articulation is really great because you're guaranteed if I get a 3.0 GPA these first 2 years, I can walk into the third year of this. And the other thing I love to show, which I'm not going to show you here, I show all these students and I go, SATE, huh? Yeah, I know. SATE, man. I got my eyes set on something else. But I pull out this chart from CEO World Magazine. I show that to anybody in here. CEO World Magazine, where they rank all of the business schools in the world, hundreds of them, at the top, Harvard, Wharton, MIT, all the usual suspects. First Canadian school on that list. It's about 25th or something in the world. U of T. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. U of T is a great school, probably one of our best schools. Next one on the list, SAIT, 52nd in the world. Keep going down that list. Oh, here we go, 100. McGill, U of A, all the other schools, right? 150 down there. But they're all still great schools. They're all still good schools. Totally good, totally good. I'm not denigrating anybody. I'm just pointing out that SAIT is a player, the world stage, okay? And not just in business and all the things that they do. So anyway, sorry, I'm not getting paid by SAIT.
I'll add one thing here. We do have agreements there through schools like SAIT and Olds and such. We have agreements that the students can earn dual credits when they're in high school, where they can. I know some kids in grade 12 it's a little bit late, but in grade 10, 11, I know some people are thinking about it. Where they offer courses that are available, and you can actually start earning credits towards your diploma while you're in high school. And we have those agreements set up, which is nice because the big boards are often very competitive to get into it at 20,000 students. And we've been able to get, right now we have a student actually who is completing their first year of carpentry through SAIT. And they're doing that while they're still registered here. They're going to do a couple of courses next semester to get their graduation requirements. We've had another student do a couple of courses towards veterinary courses through Olds. So we do have those agreements that if you're thinking about these schools, and there's some really cool programs that they have. Computer programming stuff, coding stuff. There's even some, not necessarily engineering, but some aeronautical, mechanical, airplanes and mechanical.
Aircraft.
Yeah, stuff like that. The kids can start to do, when we build those, if we start building, thinking about that, then we can find, we get kids started in high school. So those are just a couple of cool things about some of these local schools that we have that CA can offer for kids. So, yeah, we've only started the last couple of years, but they do exist.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Thing about colleges is they're different from universities. Are any university professors in here? Universities teach what they want, and you have to learn what they say is proper and good to know. Colleges like SAIT go to the community and say, what do you want us to teach these kids so that you'll give them a job when they're done? Okay, so it's a real world kind of application. Anyway, so many BC schools have that 2+2 articulation. It's, Vancouver Community College, Douglasdale College, all those ones in Vancouver, Caribou, the Rockies. I mean, there's tons of colleges out there, and they have a lot of these 2+2s. So often they're good if a student has trouble getting into that degree program, they could start at a college, okay, where the admission requirements aren't as rigorous, and then move on based on those 2 years of that program onto the degree program. So again, we'll talk about that with the student if that's appropriate. Specialty schools, art schools, ACAD, which is now Alberta University of the Arts, sound engineering, film schools, all those kinds of things. They're also on our radar, possible schools for students. They have different kinds of entrance requirements. Typically, the academic requirements aren't as rigorous, okay? Typically, it's high school diploma, okay, maybe English 30-1. And they can, but they will require auditions or portfolios, things like that to get in, okay? And we look at that when we look at the schools that your son or daughter is interested in. Some students are interested in American universities, so SATs, ACTs, they aren't required by as many as there used to be because of COVID. They all stopped, and now some of them restarted, some of them don't, and some of them say it's okay. You can give us a mark, but you don't have to. So we provide PSAT, which is a practice SAT in grade 11 for students who are interested. And I've had this conversation with a couple of students about American schools, right? I've got my heart set on this American school. Okay, well, let's take a look at it. Okay, do you mind if I go over to the fees page for a second? Okay, do you see this? That's American dollars. Okay, now times that by 4. Okay, does your dad have $400,000 under the mattress? You know, said, and you know, for the cost of 1 year at an American university, typically that pays for board. That pays for Canadian university and a car. Okay, is that American education 4 times better? Well, you be the judge of that. But all of the Canadian universities are on the international A list. Every one. Okay, they're all accredited. So anyway, my bias. Some kids are competitive athletes and they will get scholarships and all that kind of stuff to help them set their accounts up with NCAA. Apprenticeships, talk about this with students, if they're at least, if there's any kind of interest in this, earn as you learn. So instead of being in debt after 4 years, hey, I've got a bank account. Typically usually 4-year duration. Typically it's about a 10-month work placement and then 2 months, 6 weeks at SAIT, learning the theory, write a test, pass it, go into your next year. 4th year, write your bid test, then you get your ticket. SAIT does have some pre-apprenticeship programs, which I steer some students to, which are crazy cool programs. So pre-apprenticeship electrician, welder, plumber, carpenter. So if a student thinks that they would like to do an apprenticeship, but they don't really have much experience with it, they haven't been in the RAT program or anything, they can go here and learn some of the basics of the trade, okay? Learn how to do some of the preliminary stuff, the safety protocols, all that kind of stuff. So we're done that. Then they can go to an employer and say, would you hire me as an apprentice? They'll say, why? Why should we do that? And the student will say, I've got my pre-apprenticeship ticket from SAIT, so I know you can get me to start working. Okay, you don't have to teach me right from very scratch. Upgrading is something that some students will have to do. And again, like I said before, it's not the end of the world sometimes. Upgrade a course or two, keep your foot in the educational system, work part-time, you know, take the pressure off, not go a full-time year right after high school if that's not for you. Some, you know, programs, university programs, quite competitive to get into. So sometimes they've got the courses they need, but they need a higher mark. They could do that. There's different places to do that kind of thing. They all have their advantages, disadvantages. Bow Valley teaches the exact Alberta Ed course. So that will change their transcript. Going to a place like Mount Royal, which I really prefer sending students to for upgrading, Because now they're in that college environment, right? Nobody knows you're upgrading. You're just a kid in college, right? You do all the collegey kind of things. But they have their version of those diploma courses, which are accepted by every university, right? So now I've got a 90 in my Chem 30, Chem 0130 from Mount Royal. It's 4 months, one semester, right? September to December or January to April. And there's no diploma exam. There's a final exam. There's no diploma. So typically kids will do better on that. Okay, fine. Talk about all these things. Everybody good stuff? Yes.
There's scholarships, NCAA, what is that?
It's for athletic scholarships. If you're competitive at the national or provincial level, then there's possibility for scholarships. Okay, so here's the timeline typically. I mentioned this a little bit before. Start applying October, November, December. Okay, they will have their deadlines, so we don't want to crush into those. Conditional acceptance, accept offer. So build a timetable, spring typically. Okay, if students want assistance with that, I can help them build their timetable. Software that universities use nowadays for building timetables is great. If you went to university about, well, maybe a bit earlier, a bit later than I did, it was all paper kind of stuff. There's papers all over the place trying to figure it out. Now I help my daughter with hers at university, and it's like, okay, these are the courses I need. I have 1,348 variations that I can choose from. Yeah, I like that. Friday's off, no classes after 12, good, done. Okay. So if I'm going to talk about accommodations, if there's any kind of learning disability or learning difference going on and accommodations are required, I'll talk about that in a minute. Typically, you want to contact student services at that university or college before the school year begins, start that process in motion. Residence and scholarships are on this side of the equation. Scholarships should be looked at fairly early. Some of them have December deadlines. You'll see prestige scholarships of December 1st. Okay. I'll talk more about scholarships in a minute. Got a whole couple of pages on that, and I'll talk about residence more in a minute. Yeah, let's talk about this. You have to decide how many applications, or the student has to decide how many applications. Typically, you know, they pick a highly competitive program that they want to get into, a medium, and one that's a little bit more for sure, so that they've got a bit of a range. You know, typically students apply to 3 to 5 universities. They're expensive, right? The applications are expensive. They're $100+ each, right? And then there, you know, if you do get that conditional acceptance, you want to continue to hold that spot, you've got to pay a deposit, anywhere from $200, $300, $400, $500 deposit, right, to hold that. So it could be, usually we try to, my suggestion is think about 3 to 5. Applications paid for by credit card. So I offer to go through the application process with any student. They just need to sign up, and we'll take it from there. We'll walk through everything, make sure everything gets filled out. Transcripts get sent where they're supposed to get sent. All they need to do is bring in a credit card, pay for it. Much as I love your kids. I also keep records of all the passwords, because every university has a different format. You must have 1 capital letter, 2 numbers, and the letter Z in your password. Okay, so I keep track of all of those because invariably they get forgotten. They're all online, artist transfers. And then they start sending a flurry of emails, okay, which students have to look at, and they're going to the student because it's his or her email on the application, and they have to look at them, okay. Oh, Mr. Tolsma, I got accepted into engineering at UVic, but I didn't look at my emails and I missed the deadline for acceptance. I'll call them, I'll see if I could squeeze you in, but no, you didn't get in. You got a year off, my friend. Okay. So
just a question here.
Yep,
Do you use the school email address or is it personal email?
Probably personal email address, because the school email address will be finished at the end of grade 12.
We also don't outside emails into the school email address, so
I thought maybe with university services section.
yeah, we just worried that something got lost along the way.
And typically, they'll get an email from that university. Maybe on a university focused email. So differentiation of roles, schools roles and student and family roles. So we provide assistance in identifying a career path for your son or daughter, what kind of education they require to meet that career path, what kind of programs are available for doing that career path, where they are, what the requirements are to get into that program, and whether they line up with what the student has, whether they have the marks for it, what they might need to do to get into that, if there's any back doors that they can get into that program, maybe a diploma program. We will identify residents. Yes, they do have a residence and you need to apply by this date to get in there. For example, U of L. As soon as you get that first email back from U of L, even if you haven't been accepted yet, you get a student number, then you apply for residence because they don't have enough spots, etc. Some residences are guaranteed. Typically, the further away from Calgary, the more they are guaranteed. Okay. Talk some about scholarships, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And we provide assistance with doing the applications, making sure the marks get put in properly. And I really like helping with putting the marks into these different application systems. Sometimes students deflate their marks. They don't, I don't know why. Like, oh, I only got a 68. Well, you know what? Like last year you got a 90 in this course, and you know, like you had 85 up till now. I'm not putting a 68 in there. I'm going to put an 85 in. I don't care if it says it on a computer. You should be at an 85, right? So I expect you to get back up to 85, right? But we're not going to, you know, we want to put things in that are realistic and legitimate, but also reflect best on the student because of that competitive entry. Okay. Record keeping and course load should be full-time. Take 4 courses a semester, 3 courses, what would be best for you, and building that timetable. So we provide help with all of that. Okay. Your job is to initiate the application process. Mr. Tolsma, I would like to apply to university today. Okay, let's do it. Okay, I can't read minds. Make decisions. You have to, the student, mom and dad, whoever's making decisions have to ultimately decide which schools are going to be applied to. I'm not going to make those decisions. Nobody in the school is going to make those decisions. It's up to the student. We'll provide you as much information as possible, but ultimately it's family decision. You pay the fees. Student needs to read and respond to all the emails, all the letters, all the stuff that they will send you, and you'll love all the stuff that they send you. And apply to residence. So I can help with, yes, they have a residence. Here's the process. Here's the different kinds of rooms. But you need to go home and talk to mom and dad about how much money they want to spend on residence. You want to have your own private room with maid service, but mom and dad might want you to share it with 3 other people as a meal plan. And I can assist with identifying scholarships, but it's up to the student to fill those. There's scholarship forms, especially the prestige scholarships, you know, all the stuff that I did. It's up to you to fill that out. I'm happy to look at it when you're done and say, oh, maybe this, maybe that, but that's work on the student side. So we've already talked about some of this. I think we talked about it all. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Scholarships. So there's basically 4 types of scholarships available. The typical, the most usual one is academic scholarships based on marks in desired courses. Okay. So they're often automatic entrance scholarships. Hey, I've got a 90% average. Hey, we'll give you $2,000 to come to our school because we want the best and the brightest. Okay. typically for academic scholarships, they start 85, 90, those kind of marks to access those things. Some of them you do have to like find on the university website, and so typically the prestige scholarships like USC's Chancellor Scholarship, you need to find that on the university website and fill out the form, tell them all the wonderful things you did besides the fact that you got 95% and everything, and then you would be eligible for that. So these are like $10,000 scholarships, like they're great scholarships to get, but those are like 5 for first year students or something. The Rutherford is from Alberta Education, and it's based on grade 10, 11, and or 12, any combination of that, 5 courses. And it's really great because it's 75% each year, average in those 5 or 80. You get some money at 75, you get more at 80. Okay. And those will be those you fill out online in summer after grade 12 is finished. Okay. And it's on the Alberta Student Aid website, which there's a link to it on here. And the student will get that money when they are registered for full-time post-secondary. So if they're not going to school that September, you can still put the application in, but they won't get it until they start full-time post-secondary, which is 3 or more courses per semester. And they get to spend it on whatever they want. They just get cash, or just get a check. Athletic, talked about this a bit, competitive at the national or provincial level. Affiliation, this is often where mom and dad come in, work for a big company and they provide scholarships for students for various universities or various programs. So look into those. And then there's corporate or national ones like the Schulich scholarships. So those ones tend to be pretty rare, pretty hard to get, but that's the lay of the land. Scholarship criteria. So 75%, that's where the Rutherford is. Most of the other ones are a bit higher. They look at basically, if it's more than just academics, they look at students' level of engagement in the community. Okay, yeah, you're a smart kid. What else you got? Well, I volunteer here. I work here. I'm a leader here. I do this. I do that. Okay, so that's what they're basing it on. You've got to tell them about yourself, tell them about your activity, typically what you learned out of it. Okay, what did you learn about people? What did you learn about yourself? Some self-reflection going on. And I can help with that, like guiding them with that if they fill out those things. Essay references, that stuff, good. Here are some scholarships here. Don't worry too much about these particular links here because they are all in this comprehensive scholarship document that my colleague Jesse Hallwell made. It's many pages long and it's available on the grade 12 student team site. So ask your son or daughter to open up their teams, look at that site and download that document if you want more information about scholarships. Okay. The other place to look really quickly is go to the university that you're interested in. Just go into their search bar at the top, scholarships, and then you'll get a whole page and then just look through. Oh, first year scholarship. Oh, engineering. My son's going to engineering. Yes, he's got those marks. Yes. Okay. Talk about that. Talk about that. So at the end of the year, I'll just reiterate this because it's important. If a student is going to a provincial university, we don't need to send them a final transcript because they will contact Alberta Ed directly. If they're going to BC or Ontario or anywhere else, they need to go to MyPass, download or order transcript and send it to that university. We can't do that. They won't accept it from the counselor. They want it sent directly from Alberta Ed. Okay. And an email will go home in June reminding you of all these details. Okay. So when they do their conditional, when they do their first application, we can generate a interim transcript. So on CA letterhead, these are the courses the student is taking. Here's their mark at this moment in time. That's what I was saying about, no, you're actually better than that. You should put a higher mark in there. or I'm gonna put a higher mark in there and I'm gonna sign off on it because I think you're gonna get that. That's what you deserve to have. Okay. And, you know, like when we do that, anyway. That's what we do. Okay. Accommodations. So accommodations are for students who have some kind of learning difficulty, disability, difference, diagnosed with psychoeducational assessment. I'll talk about more of that in a minute. Basically, this learning thing prevents them from performing at the real capability. It's a barrier, okay? So accommodations try to level the playing field so that barrier is not as much of an obstacle. So the difference between strategies and accommodations. We teach strategies at Calgary Academy, right? You know, yes, your memory isn't great. So you need to do these kinds of strategies to try to get stuff into your memory. Try using this, try using different colored pens, all this kind of stuff. Do all this, do it every night. Those are all strategies to help them study, retain information, produce information. Accommodation is, again, to level that playing field because there's no strategy that you could do about that. If someone has reading difficulties, we could teach strategies, but they're still going to have those reading difficulties. Typical accommodations of post-secondary are these things here. And typically what most students need is a bit of extra time. Okay. So much so that Alberta Ed has changed diploma exams to be universally double time. Now, before, I've been doing this for 30 years, applying to Alberta Ed, we would have to send in all sorts of documents for every student saying, this is why this kid needs extra time. And they would go, yeah, okay, we'll give it to you, right? We had to beg them for it. And now there's so many kids who need it. It's such a thing that extra time for diploma exams is just automatic. We don't have to ask for it anymore. But if there's other things that a student needs, those still need to be identified and requested. Universities, however, do not automatically give extra time. So that's something that student benefits from. So extra time is like, so an exam is 3 hours long and they take 3.5 hours long. Well, you know what? Maybe don't take a nap in the middle of that exam, right? Try to get her done in 3 hours. Extra time is like, it took me 5 hours and I was plowing away at it as best I could. And I still, right, was running up against the wall. So that's when they need extra time, where they're really kind of struggling with all that processing of all that information. So these things, some of these things come at cost, okay, to the parent. Some of it is helped out with different kinds of grants. I'll talk about with that in a minute. So other possible post-secondary accommodations. So each university post-secondary candidate is required to provide accommodations for students who have an official diagnosis and supporting documents. However, they get to choose how much and what it is that they get to provide and what the cost is. So if it's an undue, if it's too much of a load for the university, too much of a financial load, they won't be supplying that kind of thing, or else the parents have to pick up the cost of that. Okay, they will all provide something, but different schools, it's not going to be a standardized kind of set of accommodations that they offer. So this is when you go to the student center, the accessibility center, whatever they call it at your particular university, you make an appointment with them fairly early. You say, and the student has to know, this is what I need. I need extra time. I need to be able to use my laptop. I need an audio recording of the exam, and then I'll do fine. I'll show you what I know. But they have to be able to articulate that to the people at the student center and often to the professors as well, because at some universities, they have to go up and talk to each professor and say, this is what I need. Are you on board with this? They have to kind of make their case for it. Mom and dad can't do that for them. I can't do that for them. They have to do it themselves. So accessing contact student services prior to Okay, sometimes students say, Polsma, I've got an exam tomorrow, and I need extra time. Help me. Can't do it, right? Takes months to get all this stuff in order. So they need to have, most importantly, a current IPP from high school. That's easy because that shows prior usage. Yes, this student has used this accommodation, grade 10, 11, 12. They need it, ongoing usage. They also need a current psychoeducational assessment done by a psychologist. Okay, and this assessment has to have a diagnosis of some sort of learning thing that is impeding their production. Okay, and there will be a list of recommendations at the end of the psychoeducational assessment saying this student should get extra time, should be able to use a laptop, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And typically, when students come to Calgary Academy, they typically come with a psychoeducational assessment. That's junior high or start of high school. Unfortunately, by the time they are ready to go to university, those psychoeducational assessments are still valid. Those things don't really change, right? But post-secondaries typically won't accept them because they're stale data. Okay, so you'll need a new assessment to access those accommodations at post-secondary. Very few will say, oh yeah, that's okay. You know, like you're good. You got a grade 7. We know these things, you know, they still are there. Even though you've got strategies and accommodations, you've still got a learning difficulty. So it's legitimate. Other schools are very technical. It's got to be 3 years. Sorry, we'll take it within 5 years. Typically 3 to 5 years is the standard window. So many students will need to access a new psychoeducational assessment in grade 12. So if you have a psychologist you use and you want, son or daughter wants the accommodations of post-secondary, then you should be organizing that psychoeducational assessment now. We're also doing psychoeducational assessments in the building through Headwater Learning. Actually, FedEx is taking that on. There is a charge. There is a cost attached to that. It's not as much as going outside, but it's still a significant cost, but that's the way it is. There's her email, and just contact her if you'd like to set that up. She's done so many of these, and she's great at doing them and writing up the recommendations so that universities and colleges will accept them. Financing. So typically, we're coming to the end, folks. Thanks for your patience. Typically, government views financing of post-secondary as a 3-party agreement between student, parents, and government. Everybody should pay their share. So if you're looking to the government for some kind of loan or grant, they're going to be asking you, well, how much money do you make? Okay. And then they'll start talking about how much they're willing to contribute. Tuition is, well, 6,000. I wrote this a couple of years ago. I think that's a little bit shy now. Typically, I just look at USC right now. It's about 10 grand for fees and books and tuition for a typical program. Okay, that's if they're staying at home and they're not paying rent, or food, board, or lodging. Okay, if they're going to go away, you could double that. So it's about 20,000 a year with residents and meal plans and things. And then far away, you got to factor in flights, etc. Alice, Alberta Learning Information Service, is a great source of information for occupations and funding and all sorts of things. So use those. And student loans, student aid, and Student Aid Alberta, another great website. And that's where you would go if you want to get a student loan. You would go to Student Aid Alberta. Funding for LD, there is some funding available, up to 5,000 per academic year. So the way of getting these grants, however, is complicated. You do have to apply for a loan and get authorized for that and all that kind of stuff. You can pay that loan back the next day, but that's how you get that grant, by going through that formal paper process of filling all the stuff in and, you know, submitting your all of your information and the legal things about the documentation and all that kind of stuff. Alice, great website, more good websites for you, and some of the different types of open houses and speakers coming. There's typically a talk like this, but it's put on by different high schools and post-secondaries, or actually it's put on by the post-secondaries. Usually 4 or 5 of them get together and they have a similar conversation, transition to post-secondary. We'll talk about a lot of this stuff, but it's from their perspective. And if you're interested in that, typically it's around February. These other things here, I've got some dates for you. We try to arrange the typical suspects in for a presentation to the students. So during the day, students sign up to go see them. We'll see them in here usually. These are open houses. So if you're interested in these places, this is a great place to see the profs, see the program, take a look at the campus, see if it's something that the student would be interested in. So that's Saturday 10 to 2. They would like you to pre-register on the website. Most of them would like you to pre-register so they get an idea of how many people are coming. This is a great event here, the Out of Province University Fair. This is something that every student and family should go to if you're thinking about going to any school outside of Alberta. Every university in Canada sends a representative to Calgary because they love our students. And they go to several high schools in the, several high schools in Calgary. They set up their little booths in the gymnasium. They have them at various times during the day, all across Calgary. There's evening sessions and they're spread out across the city. So sometimes we've gone as a group with the high school kids to an event that's close by. We didn't find that was quite as productive because they're with their friends, right? They, I don't know, they're just not as focused. When they go with one friend or with mom and dad or something, they're more focused and they kind of ask better questions and all that kind of stuff. So we'll leave it up to you guys to attend these things, but they're very useful. You can talk to the recruiter. What have you got? What's this program? What do I need to get into it? What kind of scholarships do you have? They got all this information at the fingertips. They'll give you their cards. They'll give cards for different people at the school for you to contact and start that communication. So it's a hugely, hugely beneficial event. And it starts October 17th, a couple of weeks from now, lasts for 2 weeks. Okay. So there's lots of time to find a place that would work for you. And when you go to that website, it'll list all the schools and the times, okay, and all the schools that are coming. State has an open house 2 days, Friday and Saturday. Again, great event. If you're at all interested in that, go to it, take a look around, see if it inspires you. Mount Royal has theirs. They're all typically around this time of year. St. Mary's has one. St. Mary's is used to be kind of a feeder school, transfer school, where it is technically a Catholic school, but you don't need to be Catholic to go to it. And it's small classrooms and things like that. We students from here would go there, do a year or two there, and then transfer to a larger university, UC or something. Still do that, but now they're been around long enough that they're developing their own degree programs as well. That's it. If you have any questions at all, my email address, btolls@calgaryacademy.com, and I'd be happy to work with you and help your son or daughter get into their desired program. Yes. You have a question? That's discrimination.
I know, but like, I mean.
They could say no
Yeah.
if you don't have a current psychoeducational assessment, or if your psychoeducational assessment doesn't have an official diagnosis. But if it's got all that, got the proper paperwork, they have to, by law, give you something. Okay. Thank you, folks. Sorry.
And then like, but this year she's gonna, because now she's like in Ghana year, she's gonna go to the student, like.
But there was about six people there who obviously their fathers or whatever played in the series. They passed away and they were just there representing. So, yeah, it was sad to watch because I remember that for sure. Yeah.
We're gonna say. Oh, seats. Seats great. Okay, so well, you know, what I would do.
We have access to all everything else. And like, so the wall is
Just educational rankings. Okay. Because it is too small.
So, yeah. So it as. Some say.
Yeah, you don't.
So those are the ones that don't get that.
Life or.
Yeah.
You know what? Commission.
So they'll just.
As long as you've got fairly good marks. These scholarships, you know, it's like a part-time. Exactly.
Yeah, it's always good for email. So that's.
It's a, you know, grade 12 website. Grade 12.
Edward, go ahead.
Yes. Yes, yes, well, the English system is a bit confusing to me. Yeah.
Well, but like, not like maybe flat. Just like,
Yeah. We'll get all help. What you want. Love it.
Yeah, and I'm not happy with the come to play.
Oh, yeah. All right.
So, two things.
Yes.
Two things.
That's already on his script.
Yeah.
So that will be accessed by any student that you apply. Yeah, so they either, it's in progress, they'll access it themselves. It's on progress for second.
Well, maybe not you.
Yeah. Top five candidates. Great schools, all the schools. Yes.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
It's reading. Those readers are really-
It's public.
I would, so when I take us, it started off like 6 kids, so.
But
You know, the fact that UNCC is right up there.
Yeah.
In fact, it's like relative to.
Yes.
Significant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's significant,
So they know,
whether it's the best.
they know how to talk to clients.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know the categories that you can all.
Yeah.
So,
But it's like.
but you know, I've had students go up there and they've enjoyed it.
Good experience.
Yeah, it's. And it's often people.
In my mind, like, figuring this
Yeah.
out, to make sure I get. Again, I was usually I'm saying, during extension of 6 months, in place workforce and trade line.
Like you said, you don't know where that open door is. You can't see it.
Okay, every day, so we
You just
just.
take a step and keep looking.
Yeah.
And then
so
you
I
see
think-
that walk in the night.
Basically.
So I'm pretty sure.
I mean, then start looking at that. Kids as well. They're getting on the website.
Highly recommend that.
Take a look what's here. Instead of trying to think,
If
this is what I want to do. Let's see what's available.
Yeah.
Go on the website, start scrolling through, read through their programs. It's nice having an adult with you, with them doing
Like all the, like you looking at all these.
So fine.
You must have. Insights for. Kids talking.
Well, let's do that. I'd love to do that.
I push through.
Yes, yeah. And so that was probably.
Yes.
But maybe that was the thing for us to get ourselves. And then go away with the figure.
There's so many options.
And like you say, none of them.
So because it's back in the day.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, people have enough money. They can, there's cities working. It's not an expensive system. Right?
Oh.
Yeah. There's no region that's more expensive.
There's programs that just need to shine that are. For kids with these different.
Yeah. That's hard. Even if they're still around here, they've all got usually different. So, the only one of the most popular programs is college.
So I think
But that's not
really
really
not
not for these guys.
so because every.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Behind Nicola, Cooper's mom was catch the end hours. Were you talking about Mount Royal or? Oh.
Mount Royal's pretty cool. Great school, love it.
Yeah, after we talked to you, we went over and wandered around on,
Yeah.
had lunch there.
Yeah.
It was-
It's really, it's that college, university, very close, small classes. It's good. Just about every kid I've had go about Royal, like Buzzbridge and say, yeah, I loved it. So you see not so much.
The two biggest were Satan, Lethbridge, you say
In
that
business.
in business.
Business, okay. Do you have anything in computer science?
Okay.
that
Well,
might-
State has their IT program, which is great. A great two-year program, which is designed for people working in a business environment.
And did you
So
program?
there you go.
Computer programming?
Yeah, I'm.
Network troubleshooting, hardware, software, you know, passwords, all the stuff that we use to run a business, right?
So is the mountain programming? Did you programming?
So that would be a computer science program.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good or bad?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, my stop here.
And do you know, Gary already asked, do you know the admission date?
They start accepting applications on
Oh,
October.
great. Excellent.
Okay, so there's no cutoff date, it's just that they can start
Oh, yeah.
anytime after October.
So there's, yeah, really like this is.
Yeah, that's what
They
I
just.
you asked me. Well, so you say that you have to have a couple grades that
You're
are.
walked in, you don't remember the math, this and that. It's just, you just get stuff done, so.
Like I asked me,
You know,
what are your grades that you?
You gotta start having some tests, if you don't know yet, right, there's anything on their
So
cover.
that would be great to talk to you and say, hey, what would my
Or talking to your son,
And then
you
you
can say,
like,
what's my mark?
Because
I'm gonna sit down and talk to you.
So that's how that
Yeah,
happens.
because if you start applying,
Yeah.
let's get some marks in there.
Okay, I see.
So when would be a good target date for Cooper to meet with you and kind of go through, like October 15th or what? So I want him to take charge of the process.
Sooner the better, maybe.
But you gotta have some marks, you know, under your belt.
I would suggest we still have, it's 6 different just to talk about stuff. Identify the goals, make sure.
Just you and Cooper?
Well, we just see all of us, but you just. I like to think have another.
And then we think of
just like, go through different, make sure these clear.
Yes.
As to what it is he wants to apply.
Yeah.
And then,
Like, there's very.
anytime, so, sign up for a period, go walk through it all, get it all done.
Maybe we'll try to go through that my blueprint thing with her, that his interests and how that, because he kind of has, he's had, he wants to go into computer science, but we don't know really how much he's thought about what other options might be.
I think he just thinks he's in that world right now, he's kind of in that track.
Same for English. You've got something to go. But it's not a wrong time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, it's just, he was going far away, he's cool. Computer science.
No, no, he said he has no interest in it, and I'm fine with that, I think he could do better at, I mean, our two girls.
Lots of places, one's not, lots of places, I don't know, I say testing, that's where.
You want to stay.
And that's girls studying, that's lots of.
Oh, for sure. And how old is he?
About 24, just moved out last month.
Oh. Anything else we start to, no, you covered a lot of big ground.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know, it's time we enjoy.
General this last. So this week's not very exciting, that's part of my kids.
I did not send it out, but,
As well, but, we really like to try to get you something.
Yeah, good.
And you're getting started.
you leave me on me, I'll email it to you.
Alright, well, don't worry, kids. Yeah, you too. Yeah, good to see you, and yeah, just go travel next year.
I think we put a, yeah. Take a break.
That's fair, well, no, that's good. Hey, he's got my social going on right now, anyway, I don't think you guys are later.
You tell him what's.
Hey, I can, the busy guy.
Yeah, well, we had to have a chat a couple of days ago when he saw his, we saw his backpack, we're like, well,